Hey guys, Fizzle here with another video. This is gonna be another, not very upbeat one, unfortunately. I've been wanting to do more, actually positive videos lately, but these issues sort of just crop up at, the worst sort of times. And this is probably gonna turn into another suicide rant. Um, if you haven't heard the news, Chester Bennington of Lincoln Park committed suicide on the 20th, which would have been Chris Cornell of Soundgarden's 53rd birthday. He committed suicide the same way just a couple months prior. Apparently, they were very good friends. Honestly, I was quite a big fan of Soundgarden and Lincoln Park, so this is quite a bummer. Yeah, I have to be serious here. um, and yeah, I know I put that Chester Bennington video up like just a couple weeks ago, where I was making fun of one of its outbursts. Um, that was a very tongue-in-cheek sort of thing, not meant to be taken seriously. I was kind of taking the piss out of sensitive people, oh, how dare this famous person treat his fans like this, when really it's just piss off. It's not a big deal. It's not a big news story. Must have been a really slow news day. But yeah, that outburst honestly was kind of like a red flag for this sort of thing, because yeah, he didn't he seemed off. When people have outbursts like that, it seems a bit off. It seems like Charlie Sheen type sort of outburst. Sort of like, oh, I've planned my suicide, so I can just do whatever. Obviously, that wasn't the case with Charlie Sheen. It was just drugs, but yeah, it was clear that he planned this suicide. He was talking about suicide in recent interviews even, and it's not a coincidence that it happened on one of his best friend's birthdays, in the same way that they did it too. It reminds me of when my mom did it. She clearly planned it. I'm actually gonna go into more detail than I have before about this. My brother was in respite care, and he got kicked out of respite care because they couldn't deal with him because he's too big, he's too aggressive, very severely low functioning autistic. He couldn't even speak properly. He couldn't speak English. He would just talk in grunts and various noises. That's how bad it was. And he was over 6 feet tall and big. I couldn't hold him back. He was bigger than me, essentially. And it became sort of too much, and we actually discussed, a couple years prior to the incident, him, self-harming, essentially. He would headbutt things, and he would cry for seemingly no reason, but I wouldn't want to live like that myself. I'm super anti-suicide, but there's a point where if I were a vegetable, there would be no point. Where you're incapacitated, where you can't do the things you aspire to do. And there's the argument to be made that since he had a developmental disorder, he wouldn't be able to grasp the concept of that. Aspiration would be entirely different. And yeah, I can see that being completely possible. But at the same time, just being that disabled would just be horrible. I can't imagine a world where that would be a way to live. And I've kind of had this guilt because I talked to her about this, and then she tried to attempt suicide after saying she felt the same way, that's what the whole ordeal was about. She attempted suicide a second time after that. she actually said to me in that conversation, she said that she wanted to kill Robert and herself, but he was in respite. And I was there when she was like screaming, when she was like on all the pills and stuff. She would drink and take prescription pills, which is a horrible combination. And she struggled with depression for her whole life as well, especially after having Robert. And she lost her parents relatively recently too. It was about like, I don't know, about 10 years ago now. She lost her dad to drinking. He used to drink in his young adult life, and it caught up with him. And her grandma actually died on the same day of cancer, rather. Very, it's very tough, and I can understand that. The whole family went through that. And with Robert, that's just like the icing on the cake, like just terrible. And she finally got a grasp on things. She was exercising, she went on a diet, she lost a bunch of weight, and she felt really good. And we were talking every day over the phone, and things seemed really good. And, you know, it was nice to finally be on that level with my mom, to be able to actually talk to her, because I felt like growing up through my childhood that there was this antagonistic relationship between me and my parents, and that she'd finally come around. And then she got with this other guy, and he turned out to be a complete douchebag. And she's just like, I think she had a bit of a breakdown over that. And she's like, wow, I really don't know how to choose him. I'm such a loser. I'm like, you know, chill out. Like, it happens. But, yeah, she eventually went through with it. She cut off communication with me. That should have been really obvious for me. Like, just one day, like, she just wouldn't answer my phone calls. And, yeah, a week later, sure enough, my Uncle George is like, oh, hey, I need to have a word with you. And, oh, the way he handled it was so awful. Like, he just kept me waiting. It's just like, no, with news that bad, you just tell me up front what happened. You don't leave me waiting for 2 hours to hear it. But that's neither here nor there. Anyways, found out the news. She went through with it. And yeah, that's kind of what people do. They plan it way in advance, and they're just determined to do it. And then they just like do the bare minimum they can to sort of try to keep the suspicion away while allowing themselves to do it. And that's what she did with me. She kept me out of contact with her because, like, this is just a theory, but she might have felt that I was talking her out of it. Maybe she'd been planning this for a long time, but I was the reason she couldn't go through with it. Yeah, because she cut off communication with me for a full week and then did it. And people don't act right. You can't be on. You can't be like, this is just my opinion, by the way. Don't be like, oh, my friend committed suicide and he was perfectly like proper minded. No, this is just my opinion. I think if you're gonna kill yourself, there must be something wrong in your brain. Like, there must be like a screw loose. Something didn't go right. There's always got to be contributing factors. And yeah, that was the case with Chester Bennington as well. And this is actually a very common thing with musicians. Like, and you could connect the dots with drugs as well, because that's also a common thing with musicians. It's really quite terrible. Like, there was also Brad Delp from Boston who killed himself. Um, Chris Cornell of Soundgarden, I've already mentioned. That's 3 right there. Kurt Cobain is another big one as well. Of course, there's conspiracy theories surrounding that, but, you know, I do think it's perfectly possible to shoot yourself in the head when on heroin. Like, if you can coherently play guitar and sing while you're on heroin, I think you can shoot yourself in the head on heroin too. I don't think that's impossible, really. Yeah, really, it's like a really vicious cycle. And Placebo, finally getting back to this, by the way, Placebo put out a message that, like, a tribute to Chester Bennington, and they, like, warn people of the twin demons of depression and addiction. And yeah, it really does boil down to that. Like, there's also the terrible things that led to that in Chester's life. He was molested by a family friend back when he was younger. And I think he was talking about suicide even way back then. And he got into some hardcore drugs. He got a job at Burger King, literally to pay for his meth addiction. That's what I've read that somewhere. I haven't brushed up on that, but I'm pretty sure that's accurate. And really, that's the only thing that makes sense to me is drug abuse mixed with the depression. See, I've got the depression, but I've never done any, like, illegal drugs. So hey, maybe that will change. Maybe someday I'll be confident enough to think that I can handle some meth, and then I'll spiral down too. But that, yeah. You know, it's hard enough with depression. But when you mix drugs in there, when you mix alcohol, yeah, I guess I recently started allowing myself to drink alcohol. Not a big deal. I can handle it. I feel like I'm like the only person in my family that can handle it. Like that was months ago now, and I haven't even touched booze since, so clearly not addicted at this point anyways. But yeah, it's really, really awful. And the thing about suicide is it's really awful to the ones who care about you, and that's it. Like, it's not something that gets back at people who, like, had it out for you. No, they don't care. That's what they wanted. You know, it's the ones who actually cared about you who have to take the blow, who have to, like, take the hit for that. And that's what's really awful about it. You know, even if you don't think there's a lot of people who care about you, you know there is. You know, that's why my mom cut off communication with me, because, you know, she probably wanted to deceive herself into thinking that, like, no one would care, that it wouldn't affect her, wouldn't affect people. She did write the note, like the apology, but, you know, I think deep down she was trying to trick herself. Seriously, like, it's... I didn't make a video when Chris Cornell did it. I didn't make a video when any other similar events happened, when any other similar deaths and stuff happened. But you know, it's gotten to a point where it needs to be addressed. I know I tackle these sorts of things with a bit of disdain, but on this channel, I honestly do want to keep it a bit of humanity. Like, this is a roasting sort of channel, but I do want to keep a bit of humanity. Like, I want to be an asshole, but but with a bit of restraint. Like, not really restraint, that's the wrong word. That sounds kind of negative, like self-censorship or something, but, like, you know what I mean. Like, deep down, there's that, you know, the compassion there, like the sympathy. And honestly, yeah, I do feel that. I actually tweeted Mike Shinoda, like wishing him luck, like saying like, "Hey, you guys are awesome. Linkin Park's been an inspiration. You know, keep your chin up," sort of thing. Um, kind of silly because he's already gotten like 20,000 responses, but yeah, I kind of felt the need to do that. People think that like celebrities and musicians and stuff, you know, they have it all made. You know, they're beyond us. They're beyond human. No, they're at the end of the day, we're all just human. And that's a tragic thing actually, is that some celebrities, like, they get to a point where they, you know, they can no longer really have the, like, they can no longer feel like they're human so much because they're just put on this like pedestal where they're beyond that. And it's just like, no, they aren't, though. They're struggling with depression, and they're like at this point where they can't have normal conversations with everyday people about that sort of thing. Yeah, I think that always seems to be a kicker. Like, I fell into that sort of thing too, where I was avoiding people for like years, and that was not healthy. Like, I was contemplating going postal at my job. I was just like buckled down working at Timmys, which was the worst experience of my life, actually. Like that was just like the icing on the cake for me. There was working at Timmy's while that was like going down, while I was going through depression and with terrible management. You know, I can say that with confidence. That's not even slander. Like, just so incompetent, you know. And druggies, like, not even just druggies that are regulars there. Yeah, there was that. But they actually hired 2 drug addicts right before I quit. I was just like, no, that's the last straw. Because I felt like I was, like, gonna go postal. Like, I was fantasizing about shooting up the place. And, you know, I was like, no, this has crossed the line now. I've got to stop this. And then I got a job at the movie theater, which I like much more. Like, there's been a few instances at the movie theater where there's been druggies there who have caused me a lot of trouble. But all in all, it's been a great experience. And, you know, I hope to step up in the future, but for now, this is kind of working for the most part. Yeah, anyways, really terrible thing suicide is. I have a feeling I'm never gonna get beyond this. Like, it's gonna be like a regular thing that I talk about, because there always seems to be something that brings it back up. And it's something that I can sympathize with, but that equally baffles me. As I mentioned before, when I was younger, I was thinking of suicide. Like, just, and it was just a thing of getting back at my family as well. When I was thinking of suicide, it was just a thing of like, you guys are assholes, and you guys are so anti-suicide. I should just do it just to like ruin your lives, sort of thing. And at that point, like, I didn't have any aspirations. Like, I was wasting, like, so much of my life was wasted just defending myself from the onslaught that was my dad and his drug addiction, and my mom and her, like, she was on prescription meds and she was drinking at the same time. And that's a recipe for disaster. And you know, and she didn't even see it either. You know, it made her into a psycho, and she couldn't even see it. But yeah, and that's a real terrible thing, is that, like, when I was younger, like, I like, I actually wished for that sort of thing. And then when things turned around, when I could, like, actually speak with my mom, she became, you know, she was basically my best friend. when it finally turned around, she did it. And it's just like, wow, well, fuck, you know. But yeah, I try to take the positives out of this, as everyone should do. Like, it's a negative thing, but, you know, you really got to keep your chin up, as cliche as that is. Like, it's terrible. Like, at the end of the day, it's terrible, and you can't deceive yourself out of that. Just, you know, you got to take the punch and then roll with it. And then get back up. And I think that's why I wanted to make this video, because it's such a recurring thing. People need to get on with it now. You know, we need to learn from this and move on. And, you know, people always kick themselves over suicides and stuff. Like, what could I have done more? Like, you know, is it my fault for not doing enough? Did I do something wrong that led to this? And no, that's, you know, it's not on you. You know, it's on that person. And that's the real terrible thing, is that person's gone now. They don't have to, like, they're done. Like, they don't have to own up for what they did. You know. That's left on you, and that's what's really unfair about it. And I guess when I make these rants about suicide, I'm really speaking out to those people who have to deal with their, like, loved ones who did this. I'm really speaking to these people, that they have to move on. And that does come with time. There's very few people who actually get completely destroyed by these sorts of things. Most people do move on, which is great. But, you know, if we could help a few more people, I know my channel's not very big, but if we could help a few more people, that'd be great. Anyways, guys, that's it for today. I feel like I've rambled on enough. I can't even say it. Stay salty, bros. Yeah, and keep your chin up. Oh, a little PS here, actually. I watch Yukog Monkey. He's a rock band player. I know I did a video like mocking rock band players. I think I even used one of his clips. He played Numb by Linkin Park. I wanted to do a similar thing, but just like I feel too busy. I figured it was more appropriate doing this. But you guys should check out his channel. Really awesome guy. Really cool guy. Yeah. Peace.